Hello and welcome to Closing Day. I'm Jeff Delgrand, your host, and Closing Day is a real estate show that's all about real estate. We cover everything on this show from buying, selling, investing, financing, appraising, staging, anything to do about real estate we cover on this show. Our hope on the show is that you'll get information, you'll be inspired, and you'll be able to take some of these tips home with you to help you save you some money, some time, and make your whole real estate experience that much more enjoyable. Now, today we're going to talk about real estate investing from a professional's view, not from an investor's view, although we will get that a little bit, but more from the top down to see what real estate investing is like from the outside and all the way in. To help me with this, today I have with me John Heath from RE/MAX, a professional real estate agent, also an investor. He walks his talk. So John, we're going to be covering, as you know, real estate investing. Why would anybody get into this line of work?
Well, Jeff, thanks for having me in tonight. I'm very excited about this subject.
Oh, you're welcome.
As someone who invests in real estate personally, but also helps people to invest in real estate as well. And there's one of the things that I like to think about real estate investing is that it's one of those few vehicles that exists where someone who maybe isn't born into wealth can, with a plan, they can actually begin to accumulate a pretty significant amount of wealth and financial freedom. The 9-to-5 job won't do that.
Yeah,
but
I actually read that more people become millionaires through real estate than through all other avenues of creating wealth combined. Like a rock star, good luck being one. Movie star, good luck being one. They're just so rare.
We don't have the looks for that, Jeff.
Okay, so the stock market, well, it's a little bit risky. Vegas, I'll put my money there maybe.
Yeah.
But no, real estate, that's supposed to be the key.
It's a good, solid investment. And, like Mark Twain, for example, he said, buy land if they're not making any more of it.
That's a good point, yeah.
It's a good, solid investment. And, some advice that, you hear, I think Will Rogers, a very famous actor, he said, don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait.
Ah, okay.
And it kind of gives you some insight into the whole mindset of an investor in real estate. It's really a patient man or woman's game.
Yeah.
It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's something that requires forethought, and it requires a plan. But once it's executed, it can generate some very, very significant return.
Okay, so talking about returns, tell us about some of the benefits of real estate. Let's look
Well,
at that.
if you were to take money and invest it in the stock market, for example, which is not a bad thing to do, if you put money into RSPs, mutual funds, historically over the last 15 years, you're going to get anywhere after fees to for the management of those RSPs, you're looking at a 4%, 4.5% return on investment. Take away inflation and you're looking at a 2% return on investment.
Really? You can barely eat on that.
No, you can't. In a solid GIC, for example, a guaranteed investment certificate, what are you going to get? A 1% return on investment. So, those are all, not bad things, but they just don't provide a, significant return on investment.
Right.
Whereas in real estate and in investing in, specifically in income-producing real estate, it's not outrageous to expect or to look at potentially getting a return of 25 to 30% on your initial investment.
Right.
That's a significant difference between that number and the number that you could potentially get on the stock market, for example.
Okay, so you're talking about some of the benefits being obviously creating some wealth. What other type of benefits would you?
Well, in this one, I'm finding more and more people are interested in this part of real estate investing, or this reason for real estate investing is, and for me personally, this is one of the major reasons that I do it. It's called creating my own pension.
Right.
The day of the 40 years at the plant and retiring with a nice pension at 60 or 65, those days for the vast majority of Canadians is over. So it's an opportunity, if with some forethought, to be able to create a very nice addition to Canada Pension or Old Age Security or any RSPs that you have been able to save over the years, and provide you a significant income when you retire. And you know, for self-employed people, for people who don't have pensions, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and so many of these jobs these days, they can't even really bank on their own pensions, you know, like depending on what business you're with, because companies come and go. You know, Sears is closing its doors soon. I don't know about their pension plan, but I mean, there's been a lot of big companies make a lot of big changes, and security isn't what it used to be.
And I think we're becoming more aware of the fact that we need to take care of ourselves. And real estate investing is an opportunity for not everyone, but for those who it's a good fit for, it's a great opportunity. And one thing I'd like to add to that as well, Jeff, is, and this is kind of, it has nothing to do with return on investment, but it's investing in real estate and becoming a landlord. For me, I think it's a public service. Right. Now, landlords get, you know, beat down on, they're awful, they're terrible. But think of a world where all the landlords just all of a sudden said, we don't want to be landlords anymore.
Where would anyone live?
You know, it would be quite a crisis. You know, I mean, it's not going to happen, but if there were no landlords, where would people live who couldn't afford to buy a house? So landlords are providing a very valuable service. So for someone who, you know, part of their core values is, you know, I want to add value to people's lives. I want to be the kind of person who blesses other people and makes their life better. I think that being a landlord, being a real estate investor and providing shelter for people really is a fantastic opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting you'd say that. I've done quite a bit of real estate investing in my past, and many of the people that I had as tenants are still good friends today. Yeah, so it can be a great experience for everyone.
It can. Yeah. And you know, I was speaking with someone today who, you know, unfortunately their landlord isn't taking care of their heat.
Oh, today?
Today.
It's freezing today.
It was freezing.
Yeah.
And, you know, that person is quite unhappy about the situation, and it's impacting their life negatively. You know, think of the flip side. A good landlord, the heat isn't working, boom, fix it, it's up and running. You've added value to that person's life, you've made their day better. You know, so it's a great opportunity for, you know, people whose core values are to be helpful and to want to do something good for people. It's a great opportunity.
Yes, yeah, I can totally see that. Now, what about some of the risks of becoming an investor?
Well, there's no risks.
No risks. Okay. All right. Then, I guess we're done for today.
We're done for today. Now, of course, there are definitely risks. Anytime you invest, there's always going to be risks, whether it's in the stock market, whether it's in options trading or anything, there's always going to be risks. So when you're a landlord, probably the number one risk is bad tenant, getting a bad tenant. Yeah. And, you know, the potential of them not paying their rent or, you know, trashing the house or, you know, causing major damage. And those are things that, with proper support and proper, I guess, understanding of how it works, you can mitigate a lot of those problems by doing good credit checks, by reference checks, rental applications, believe it or not, checking out your potential tenant's Facebook profile.
Right, they're public.
They're public, and you can learn a lot about an individual through their Facebook profile.
It's true.
So you can mitigate a lot of that risk of the bad tenant. There's no perfect system, but there's a lot of mitigation that you can do as a landlord. And, you know, the one that you might not think of that is good mitigation is creating demand. And, and this sort of works like in real estate when you have a house that is in high demand and you have 5 people who want to offer on it. You get to pick and choose which offer you're going to take, which benefits the seller of the house. Well, if you're a landlord and you have a nice property and you are marketing it well to prospective tenants, having 3 or 4 quality applicants really gives you the ability to pick and choose. We live in a time right now where historically our vacancy rates are very low. In the GTA over the last 5 years, running between 1 and 1.6% for a vacancy rate. That's virtually non-existent.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. And ask anybody in Orangeville, for example, who's looking for a place to rent, the anecdotal evidence is it's very tough.
Yeah. One of my clients is an investor, and he says when he goes to rent a place, he puts it on Kijiji in the morning, and he takes the ad off by lunchtime because he's had so many applicants online.
So,
it's just amazing.
And in this environment that we're currently in as a potential landlord, that is a beautiful place to be.
Yes,
because it gives you the ability to kind of weed out the maybe not the best potential tenant and choose a tenant that you feel is going to be a good fit for you. And that, not perfect, but it's the best way to go.
Yeah, so it's nice to have some selection that you can pick from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you mentioned references, things like that.
Reference checks, calling, their employment, making sure that they actually do have a job.
Yeah.
Not their, and I was talking to someone one time, they said, never call their current landlord because their current landlord may want to get rid of them.
Oh, right.
Call the landlord before and get that reference because you probably get a little bit more accurate, potentially more accurate reference.
Yeah, references are very impactful and very important for many things. If you're hiring someone, to bringing a tenant on board. So the reference process is part of the application process. That's sort of where
absolutely. When I'm advertising a unit, and then I will show it to all the prospective tenants and hand every single prospective tenant an application and a consent for credit. And then they submit that, and then I can go through them and weed out and pick the best 3, best 4, and then interview and reference and so on. And that tends to do a good job of getting good tenants.
Yeah, that would be. It's I just think you get the best 3 or 4. That's got to be tough.
You know what?
How do you do it there?
There are times when you make that phone call and you feel bad because you can only pick one, and sometimes you have 2 or 3, and they all need a place. And it is hard. So, but that just goes to show there's tremendous demand.
Yes,
tremendous demand for rental accommodation in Orangeville currently.
So for a potential investor, it's not risk-free, but if you're doing it intelligently and you're being educated about it. Yep. All right, now we're going to have to take a break in a minute, and or in a moment. And when I come back, I'm going to ask you, let's put you on the hot seat, what your very best advice would be for a real estate investor.
I can
All right, so I'll give you a few minutes to think about that. And we'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to Closing Day. I'm Jeff Delgrand, your host, and I'm here with John Heath, real estate agent from RE/MAX and real estate investor. And today we're talking about real estate investing from A to Z, top to bottom. And something I didn't get to ask you in the first part of the show, but who should invest in real estate?
Well, that's a really good question, Jeff, because I think there's a misconception out there that real estate investing is something that's only for the wealthy. You have to have a ton of money if you going to venture into being a real estate investor.
Yeah.
But there is a way, and we can maybe get into that in a little bit, about you could actually become a real estate investor with no money down.
Yes, well, we've all seen the courses.
Well,
and things, but
a legitimate way, and both you and I have helped people do that.
Yeah, it does exist.
It does exist. But there's basically two types of investors that we can talk about quickly today, and one is the non-occupant investor. And the non-occupant investor is someone who says, okay, I'm living in a home, but I would like to invest in a property and rent it out.
Yes, yeah.
That's the non-occupant investor, and generally speaking, they would throw 20% down on that property, carry a mortgage, and rent out to tenants.
Yeah.
So in that situation, let's just use an example of $450,000 semi that has 2 units in it. They put $90,000 down, they're carrying a $360,000 mortgage. The numbers are amazing. If that property, and most properties, if you do that with the rent, will cover all of your expenses. You're basically running a zero cash flow to maybe a slightly positive cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 5 years, you would have a net equity growth of over $200,000.
$200,000. Now, is that based on what type of increase do you think every year?
About a 3%, and that's being conservative, with a 3% increase in the value of the home.
Okay, now this is on the Toronto Dominion Bank website. They've done historical real estate appreciation since the beginning of time.
Right.
And their number is 6.2%. So 3% is very, very conservative.
Being very conservative in that.
Yeah.
So if you take that increase in when I say equity, basically that means the value of the home has gone up. Mm-hmm. The tenants are paying down your mortgage.
Yes. Yeah.
So your new equity is $213,000 on your initial investment of $90,000. That's a 27.5% return on investment.
Oh, it's better.
It's a little better than the stock market.
I can do better in Vegas. No, I can't.
So it's from an investor's perspective, investors look for return on investment.
Yeah.
That's their number one goal, is what is my return on investment? Income producing real estate can provide a very good return on investment.
That's a really solid number. Yeah.
But not everybody isn't going to be a non-occupant investor.
Okay.
There's another type of investor, and this is how I started out, is I became an investor. I purchased a home, duplexed it, lived in the one unit, rented out the other.
So it was your owner-occupied home, and you rented out
a space.
Unit. Yeah.
So, and in a situation like that, let's use the $450,000 semi with 2 units in it.
Yeah.
As a primary resident, I can get that house for 5% down.
That's right.
So it's a $22,000 down payment, running with a $425,000 mortgage. In 5 years, my equity has increased to $156,000.
Wow.
But here's what happens. In 5 years, you leverage your equity, buy a new primary residence, and now rent out the space you were living and continue to rent out the other space.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So you can expand your
So now you own 2 properties, and you're receiving rent from your previous home, and that income is more than covering your expenses. And the beauty of that is, and this just blows your mind, in 10 years, your net equity from the time you start renting in 10 years increases by $335,000.
So you started off with $22,000 in something's investment, and you end up with $335,000.
Exactly.
Wow, that's more.
Now here's where, remember we said about no money down?
Yeah, yeah.
That 5%, if you qualify for the Dufferin Homeownership Assistance Plan, that grant, they will grant you your 5% down payment.
So we did a show on that. That was actually one of the first shows, the Dufferin County Down Payment Grant, and how they grant you 5%.
Exactly.
For, I think there's some criteria, but the main criteria is you couldn't currently own real estate. That was it.
Exactly.
You didn't have to be a first-time home buyer. You could be, someone who's owned real estate before. But so then you're buying something with no money down, and getting a $300,000 and some odd return.
It's better than Vegas.
I'm not going to Vegas anymore. No, this.
So, bottom line, Jeff, is you remember I started off as real estate is one of the few vehicles that allow someone who isn't born into money to become financially free and own significant resources.
Right.
Well, if you did that, you all of a sudden you own 2 houses. When that house is paid off,
It's passive income.
It's passive income. And that's remember the piece about the pension?
Yeah.
When that house is paid off, if you're collecting $3,000 a month in rent, after your property taxes and insurance, you're walking away with $2,500 additional income in your retirement.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's a nice little piece to add to your retirement that, that's a lot of trips a year that you could take on $2,500 a month.
Oh, I mean, a lot of people could, virtually, I would think not live on it, but virtually live on it, because when you're retired, you have less expenses typically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the opportunity does exist for the average guy or woman or couple to get into income producing real estate and actually become real estate investors. And it's exciting because it's nice to be able to have opportunity to better yourself, and everybody wants to be financially free. Everybody wants to retire in a strong financial position. I think real estate investing, the right strategy, executed properly, is a phenomenal opportunity for people.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I was reading that cities like London, England, is mostly renters. New York City, that city, mostly renters. They're saying that Canada is turning that way as well.
It's interesting, I read today that Canada is going to allow 1 million new immigrants into the country over the next 3 years.
Oh.
It's 333,000 a year. And historically, the majority of them have settled in the GTA.
Right.
Renting is the market here for rentals, I think, is just going to continue to be very, very strong.
That's really going to help with anybody who wants to get into that business.
Yep.
So we're looking at advice,
Okay.
right? So just off your top of your head, just general advice to start with.
Well, I think a couple of things are really helpful if you want to get into anything.
Right.
It's always good to become knowledgeable about it.
All right. Right.
So how can you become knowledgeable about becoming a landlord?
Yeah.
Well, there's this beautiful document called the Landlord-Tenant Act, which
okay, beautiful document. Yes, I'm with you.
Is becoming knowledgeable about what a tenant's rights are,
yeah,
and what a landlord's rights and obligations are.
Right.
Really would provide someone with a level of confidence that when they get into the business of owning property and renting it out, that they know what they're doing. So I would highly recommend, if you want to become a landlord, become very familiar with the Landlord-Tenant Act, just as an example.
Yeah.
You don't need to memorize it by any stretch of the imagination, but understand the basic rights and responsibilities of the landlord and the tenant.
Yeah.
There are courses available. There are a lot of resources available. Mark Wiesleiter is an exceptional real estate lawyer who focuses in on income properties and landlords, and he's a very good resource that I've always found helpful.
Yeah, and I've heard there's support groups that meet monthly that you can become part of, and
absolutely support groups, like-minded individuals who can share best practices. Absolute great idea for sure.
Okay, so let me pin you down a little bit. What would be like the very best advice you'd give?
Very best advice I would give is, I really believe if you're going to venture into investing in real estate, is to surround yourself with a team.
Right.
Because you can't do it on your own.
Okay.
There's the key components of the team that I would look at is your realtor.
Yeah.
Find a realtor that you can trust, who knows the business of being a landlord, knows the business of investing in real estate.
Right, right.
And understands the math behind it.
It's true.
At the end of the day, you want to get a return on your investment. You don't want to buy a property that's not going to produce the income to cover the expenses.
Yeah,
so
that's quite right.
It's important to pick that property that is going to be the right property. Because not every income property is going to produce that cash flow that you need to cover your expenses. So picking and choosing the right property, your realtor will help you with that and help you pick that right property.
Yeah.
The second would be a mortgage broker who understands the business and understands helping that client get the financing that they need.
Of course,
and that goes without saying. you go to a mortgage broker and get that advice and get that help. And that's a real core to the team. And then obviously having an accountant who is able to steer you in the right direction as to how you should be tracking your expenses and your revenue and how this is going to impact your tax situation. That's also very important as well.
That's ultimately important to get started off correctly with the accountant and with CRA. Because when it comes to sell that property, if you haven't set it up properly at the beginning, I can see that.
Yeah. So those are my best advice.
Yeah.
I'm a team guy. I love teams.
So build a team
and get comfortable working in that team. And the better the team, the more success you'll have.
Right. That would make sense. And I guess what else would you add to that team? I guess a lawyer would make sense.
Having a lawyer that you can go to.
A handy guy or.
Yeah. Now, I won't mention his name, but I have a guy.
Yeah.
Who.
I have a guy. Yeah.
When I need something, I'm not the handiest guy in the world.
Yeah. So
I have a guy on my team who I call and say, hey, I need this done. I need a door here, or I need, a tap here. And
oh, that's brilliant.
If you're not handy, you got to have a team player like that.
Okay, John. Well, there's about a million other topics we can get into around this topic, but we don't have time today.
Yep.
But wow, that was a lot of information in a short period of time. I really want to thank you for helping me out with this topic, John. So it's John Heath from RE/MAX. And I'm Jeff Delgrand, your host, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This has been an amazing show, a lot of really good information. And if you have any questions, just check in with the show, and we can send you any of this information if you're interested at all. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.